Jerry, don't leave. We need you to check people in. And the things are on.
Yeah, but they're not.
It's on. I can hear myself. Okay. Okay, the Charter Township of Plymouth Board of Trustees regular meeting for Tuesday, December 12th, 2023 will come to order. Mr. Stewart, thank you.
Here.
Yes. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Stewart.
Here.
Trustee Monahan is excused. Trustee Kermy.
Here.
Trustee Buckley.
Here.
Clerk Vorba here. Treasurer Dorshevitz.
Here.
Supervisor Heisey.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, today's Pledge of Allegiance. How about Trustee Buckley?
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Okay, so today's approval of the agenda, I'm going to request that we drop the closed session that was scheduled for tonight. We have conferred with our attorneys on this matter earlier today. We just got some additional information from the other side, some additional legal documentation, and there is also some site plan related information that is still being requested by our planner. So I need a motion to approve the agenda minus the closed session.
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of Tuesday's agenda, December 12th, 2023, as amended.
Okay, next up is,
Need a second.
oh yeah, is there a second? How about you?
second.
Okay, seconded by Bob. Is
All in favor?
all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, now, item D, approval of the consent agenda. Comments, questions?
I have one question about Bazzi and J-Lube.
Yeah,
Does he have to be signing the ethics document since he's selling product or services to us?
I don't know if the DDA BRA members are required to do that. We can double check for you.
All right, good. I'd like to know that because he's a vendor to the township.
Yes. Okay, any other comments or questions?
Mr. Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk.
I move for the approval of the consent agenda for the regular meeting of December 12th, 2023.
Motion is made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee
Roll
Buckley. Need a roll call on this, please?
Yes. Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Buckley.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Treasurer Dorshevitz.
Yeah.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, very good. Before we get started with public comment, I know Mr. Stewart has some folks here from Sawmess, which is a company that would Sawmess. Sawmess, okay, I did it. If you just want to come up here very quickly, I'll give you a little bit more time because you are a new business in the community, and I think we'd like to welcome you to Plymouth Township.
Yeah, so good evening, everybody. I just give you a little bit of information about Samez. We're a manufacturer of industrial spray painting equipment, powder equipment, and high viscosity gluing systems. So we spray things from these desks to this podium to the cars out in the lot. And we also help assemble them by gluing all of the body panels together in the automotive body shops. So we just recently opened up a new division here in Plymouth on 5 Mile Road, our powder lab. We met John Stewart there. John invited us to come out tonight and just introduce our organization to everybody here. It's been great working in Plymouth, and I thank you for the hospitality. So,
All righty, thank you.
I wanted to say.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Okay.
While brevity is a blessing, would you please put on the record when you first started here in Plymouth and how you have grown and developed and expanded to well over 100?
100 employees, yeah. Yeah. So we moved to Michigan in 2006, and we had a business in Chicago, and we had a business here in Livonia. We bought a building in Plymouth here, added an extension onto it, put in a liquid lab, put in a high viscosity lab, and now we put in a powder lab. We've grown the business to now we're a $60 million company with 90 employees in the United States.
That's
Great, thank you very much.
As a Canadian, I want to welcome you to Hockey Town, and I also want to indicate that when I walked in the building, there were 5 very large flags: the United States, Canada, Germany, Mexico, and France.
Yes.
And you are clearly an international business and a positive contribution to the corporate community of Plymouth Township. And your marketing director from Chicago came here at my invitation, specifically tonight, and her name is Rhonda Jocelyn, and she's looking to get involved in the community.
Yep.
She emphasized the word community. And we hope you won't have to need too many of the resources of police and fire, but the chiefs are right behind you, and we're here to serve, and thank you for choosing Plymouth Township.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
for
much.
having us.
Okay, now we're going to start with public comment, limited to 3 minutes. We're trying a new feature here tonight, so bear with us. Bob has a clock, which is up here on the wall, and we'll use that once folks want to come up and speak. So, who's interested?
My name's Dale Burnhard. I'm against the gambling site. I'm responding to Mr. Heisey's quote in a gambling magazine. It's called Am I Bets. He says the political opposition to the gambling site will just move on to another manufactured crisis. So the opposition, which is most of Plymouth Township, has been called political for 9 months now. So give me one example where we said we wanted that Republican Heisey gone, or we want another party to win the 2024 election, or anything that states this is political. Mr. Heisey can't. He is just looking for sympathy or trying to deflect from backing a dead industry that is extremely unpopular with the residents. Now I move on to the rest of Mr. Heisey's quote, which says the opposition will simply move on to another manufactured crisis. Yes, we will, and they are of Mr. Heisey's making. We are simply trying to stop the destruction. We will not be responsible for your mistakes. So, Mr. Heisey, you tell the families of those who become addicted to gambling and alcohol from this gambling site that you did this. You tell the Friends of the Rouge when Johnson Drain becomes polluted that you did this. You tell those stuck in gridlock traffic due to the warehouses and the gambling site that you did this. When a hydrogen spinoff company can't find land here because the gambling site took 128 acres, you tell them and your citizens you were responsible. And when Plymouth Township gets stuck with a bankrupt racetrack like Huron Township, you tell our residents that you did this. And of course, there are crises you manufactured in the past that our citizens had to spend their precious time here trying to stop, like the tree ordinance. Your economic development coordinator, horse track and gambling site, which is ongoing, Myers store, Elks property, spars, poorly designed sidewalks and responses, Northridge property housing development, and smart meters coming soon. These are all disasters you created. And why? Because you act like a dictator. You don't engage the public up front to get their input. It stays a secret or notification through minimal means. You don't know how to communicate, or you don't care to. Residents have great ideas. Many of your disasters could have been averted with honest dialogue up front. No, you would rather dismiss us, call us libertarians, rhinos, a dark money machine, or anything else. You missed your opportunity to be a respected supervisor. You'd rather take the selfish approach than the paid servant approach you signed up to be. And residents, make no mistake, Heisey's quotes are intended to dismiss and minimize all of us. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Patty McConlogue. I'm a resident of Plymouth Township. I'm a retired RN, and I'm the host mom for Clyde, who is a chocolate lab, and he belongs to Providence Hospital Southfield. He's the therapy dog there. I have his business cards here to share with any of you that are interested. He belongs to the hospital, but I've been lucky to have been chosen as his host 7 years ago. I'm here tonight to ask the board to allow dogs into township parks. The vast majority of dog owners and hosts of therapy dogs are responsible. We take good care of our dogs and they're part of our families. I love to be able to take Clyde for walks on the weekends when he's off work. Both Clyde and I can sense when a person is afraid of dogs, and I would never allow him to approach anyone or anyone to approach him without introducing him and telling them about his work. To punish all dog owners for a few irresponsible people isn't really fair, and I think those of us who are responsible would call out anyone who behaves inappropriately in the parks. I've had to leave McClumpha Park Playground and Waterscape with my grandkids because of kids whose parents aren't teaching their kids how to behave around others, yet they're allowed at the park. I ask for the board to respect me and my tax dollars and allow dogs in the township park.
All right, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Deborah Harden. I'm also a resident here of Plymouth Township, and I'm also here to support the amendment to the regulation that currently restricts dogs from the parks. We live a block and a half from the park. Unfortunately, last spring we lost our loved dog, and as a result, our daily walks started being in the park, which is a beautiful park, which is extremely underutilized. We often are walking there alone. There are a few people on the playground and during warm weather on the splash pad. It is lovely for our own health as well as our mental health. And we are welcoming a new puppy here in a few weeks, and it would be a joy if we could walk down the street and enjoy the park. Like the previous speaker, Patty, spoke of, we are responsible dog people. We're currently been walking in the subdivisions. We are often meeting other dog owners, all walking. I think people that walk their dog tend to be very responsible people. And I hope that this receives all of your full support so that we can enjoy this beautiful resource that you've provided for us. And I really appreciate the fact that it's being addressed tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Maran Adams. Been here before. I live on the west side of Plymouth Township and have been a resident for over 25 years. I am here also to talk about the racetrack. And as you know, my point of contention has to do with gambling. The Michigan Gaming Control and Revenue Act of 1996 states the following. Casino means a building or buildings in which gaming is conducted. Gambling game means any game played with cards, dice, equipment, or a machine. Gaming or casino gaming means to deal, operate, carry on, conduct, maintain, or expose or offer for play any gambling game or gambling operation. As our own township attorney has read to us, this act has strict rules around when a gaming operation can be licensed and opened in a city in the state of Michigan. However, this Gaming Act excludes operations associated with other forms of gambling, including the lottery, gambling on Native American land, bingo games, and games associated with pari-mutuel wagering system used or intended to be used with race meetings. Race meetings are defined as a series of horse races held in one place. So the Gaming Control Act has allowed a gaming operation, that of Northville Downs, to buy property in our township with the intent of opening up a casino or gambling facility where nearly all the bets placed, that is over 96%, are placed on simulcast races using machines. Race meetings are a requirement of the Gaming Act for exclusion of pari-mutuel gaming system operations. So this gaming operation of Northville Downs is allowed to open up in our community and run continuously in spite of the fact that wagers during race meetings at this facility account for less than 4% of wagers. When over 96% of wagers are not associated with race meetings at the facility, this gambling operation should not be excluded from the Gaming Act, which requires voter approval for a building in which gaming is conducted to open up in a city, along with other requirements. Yet here we are. Further, live horse racing cannot exist without state subsidies or expanded gaming. So why are we so interested in the business aspects of Northville Downs and vocally in opposition to it opening up in our community? Because it is clearly a gambling facility that is propped up by state subsidies to support an industry that cannot operate profitably solely on race meetings held at the facility.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, in conclusion, I'm just urging you to vote no, because if you approve, you are allowing a casino gaming operation in our township, one that rightfully should have been brought to a vote.
Okay,
before the
thank you very
residents.
much. Anybody else?
Good evening. My name's Beth Freelander, and I'm a resident of Canton Township, and I represent an organization called Attorneys for Animals. This is my third time here, and I'm here tonight to support the group that opposes horse racing. This has not been on the agenda for a while, but we haven't forgotten, and there is activity going on beneath the surface, which we're not sure what it is. One of the concerns I've had recently is if you look at the stories on this horse racing, this track, it's reported like a horse race. Oh, in March, it was going to January through April, it was going to go through without a problem, then it wasn't, then it was. Now they're back feeling like this board is going to vote in favor of it. But it isn't really a horse race. It matters to the people here of your township. It matters to organizations such as mine who see horse racing as abusive to animals. I'm here to remind you of the importance of this issue, even when it's not formally before you. And I hope that you can dispose of it once and for all in early next year by just terminating the deal. Thank you.
Hi, Marilyn Bertera. I'm a supporter of the racetrack. At the November 14th board meeting, Maran Adams from the Stop the Racetrack group, who just testified, said that I was the only one that came to the meetings in support of the track. I know I'm the only one here that speaks. I know I'm not the only supporter of the racetrack. I'll repeat what I've said here before, that I believe the opposition will always be more vocal than the supporters or people who are just indifferent on the issue. The Northville Down project an entertainment venue, which includes gambling, has not actually been on the agenda for several months. However, I live in a neighboring township and I continue to attend because I know how relentless the Stop the Racetrack group is with their objections, and I take many of their negative comments about horse racing very personally. When I first started attending these meetings, I guess I mistakenly thought I could educate these detractors about the positives of harness racing. What I've discovered over the past several months is that they don't want to learn any realities. They want to spew sensationalized headlines they see on TV or social media, or spout to statistics that they are fed by animal rights groups. At the last meeting, after John Reynolds from Attorneys for Animals told the board that the horses don't want to race, I tried to explain to him that standardbred horses are equine athletes. They're bred to race. They do want to race, similar to dogs who are bred for specific talents and careers. Mr. Reynolds spoke right over me, wouldn't let me explain, so I stopped and told him we would have to agree to disagree. When I spoke during public comments at the last meeting about all the ways that horse racing has an economic impact on so many other industries, as I was returning to my seat, a gentleman, I will use the term loosely, from the Stop the Racetrack group, asked me if my list included ammunition to kill the horses. So yes, as a lifelong horseman, I take comments like that very personally. As I was driving here tonight, I had to remind myself of a quote from Mark Twain: "Never argue with an idiot. They will drag you down to their level and beat you with experience." I ask you, the board, to please support the development of Northville Downs at Plymouth Township, an entertainment venue which includes gambling. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa Safera. I am new to Michigan and Plymouth. I am here to advocate for dogs in the park. I could not believe, moving from Ohio, that we don't allow dogs in the park. For me, I'm a responsible dog owner. I walk my dogs every day. I walk on the sidewalks as of now. And I got injured last year because of the uneven sidewalks. And I just think it's safer for the dogs, safer for the people who walk dogs. We have, I'm sure, thousands of dogs in this neighborhood or this township. So I'm asking you to allow dogs in the park.
Okay,
Simple.
thank you. Oh, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Marika Diamond, and I am a 23-year resident of Plymouth Township. I have never come to this board before, but the gravity of the proposed mayor brings me here. I want my voice heard. Foremost among the concerns is the potential impact of our safety. History has shown that large retail boxes like Meijer lead to an increase in crime rate, including shoplifting. Newspaper clippings from Meijers across Michigan alone underscore the issue. Moreover, the Meijer development will impose substantial public costs, from increased road maintenance to heightened demand on fire and police services. Plymouth Township cannot afford to absorb such costs without consequences. Local businesses will face revenue losses with Meijer. This not only affects businesses like Kroger, Bush's, Fresh Time, and Westbourne markets, but also limits opportunity for other small businesses. Beyond economic concern, a Meijer store will alter the characteristic that drew us to Plymouth Township, bringing forth negative consequences such as heightened traffic congestion, increased noise, and disruption of our local landscape. In closing, I implore the Township Board to prioritize the safety, well-being, and unique characteristic of our community. As someone who has cherished Plymouth Township for over 2 decades, I urge you to vote no. To Supervisor Heisey, I express my disappointment in you. On August 16, 2023, Supervisor Heisey wrote the following on his Kurt Heisey for Supervisor Facebook page. I'm pretty sure Meyer attorneys know how to appeal the Planning Commission decision. If not, I'll send them my bill. You actually offered to work with Meyer attorneys against Plymouth Township and our own Planning Commission, most of which you appointed to help Meyer appeal. As a township supervisor, your fiduciary duty to the safety and the safeguard to both the township and the residents is your responsibility. Your statement is disconcerting. The township agenda should align with the will of the residents, the very reason we voted you in to represent us. The voice of the people against Meyer is loud and clear and unanimous. Thank you.
I would be happy to respond to that, but I know that on advice of our attorney, we are not allowed to talk about the Myers matter because it's an active matter of litigation right now, so.
My name is Donald Garla, G-A-R-L-I-T. I live off Ridge Road, and I want to very briefly give you some principles about why you should oppose the opening of the racetrack in Plymouth Township. These are some of the things I talked about last week or last month, but I would like to reiterate them, especially for the new people in the room as well as the trustees. So I will make this brief. First, a very overriding principle in many things, investing, business, the military, politics. Remember, reinforce success and starve failure. Horse racing in this state is a failure. And I would also say, invest in the future, not the past. Don't think of what happened or was nice 100 years ago. Think of what's going to be important 10, 20, 50 years from now. Secondly, I'm going to say, remember the poor economic prospects for this business model. The township may think they'll be able to get money from this. There may be some community agreement. There may be property taxes. But to get that money, the business has to stay in business. Based on what happened down in Romulus with Pinnacle, I would say it's very unlikely it will remain in business. And third, this is a more of a social commentary, but it is a market commentary too. I ask you to remember, the American people are turning against animals in entertainment. We mentioned that last time. Circuses, horse racing, other venues, greyhound racing. It's very simple. The American people are not interested in animals as entertainment, and that venture, those ventures are just declining for that reason. So with that, if you have any comments or questions, I'll be glad to reply to them.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you write that tonight?
Good evening, Board of Trustees. My name is Dr. Alice Rainville. I'm a professor and my PhD is in public health. So I want to bring the importance of public health to the issue of the racetrack. I urge you to oppose the racetrack because gambling is a public health problem. I looked up some statistics today from the Network for Public Health Law. And the problem gambling or gambling addiction Includes all behavior patterns that compromise, disrupt, or damage personal, family, or vocational pursuits. Problem gambling has the highest rate of suicide of any addictive disorder, with 1 in 5 problem gamblers attempting suicide. It's estimated that one problem gambler affects 7 other people, including spouses, children, extended family members, friends, and the broader community. With these considerations, it becomes clear that gambling is a public health concern and should be treated as such. And as a professional concerned with public health, I am concerned with the risks for gambling addiction overall that have grown 30% from 2018 to 2021. The increased risk of problem gambling can be especially seen in people with substance use disorders, seniors, youth, low and low-income individuals, as well as veterans. And numerous studies have shown that non-white populations are at a higher risk of disordered gambling. So given all these statistics, I urge you to stop the negotiations for the racetrack. Thank you.
Robert Harris, west side of Plymouth Township. 3 things. There are a lot of tax-paying customers here tonight. I think it'd be nice if the township had water available, little Kirkland, they're cheap, et cetera. Number 2, gambling in the township. The Lions Club, who gives 100% of what they take in, gives out 100%. And we were evaluating Tres Amigos, the restaurant on Plymouth Road. And the organizer said, "Oh, we were told we can't go there." I said, "Well, who said that?" They said, "The township." I said, "Okay." So the police chief, the previous police chief, called me up and he said, "That's gambling. It's millionaire party stuff, right? Highly organized by the state. Fill out all kinds of forms, you're evaluated, et cetera, et cetera. It's so clean." He said, "We will never have gambling in Plymouth Township." And he said, number 2, people are gonna go out there and smoke. So, okay, number 3, Myers. Number 1, I'm not sure why we need, you can always use more money, but we have plenty of tax revenue. There's a lot of upper middle, high-end homes. We've got tax revenue from all the industrial park companies that are around. Number 2, I did a survey, an informal survey. No, let me back up. I think it would be good if the township trustees did surveys of their customer base, the citizens, the taxpayers. You could just send out a email blast and say, "I'd like to get a reading on this. What are your feelings about the racetrack?" Or, "Are you in favor of Myers," et cetera, et cetera. That'd be cheap and easy. Wouldn't cost any money, and that way it takes some of the personal stuff away and represent the taxpayers better. So my little survey, out of 37 people, 26 were against. So that's against Myers going in. The reasons: we don't need any more shopping. We got all these grocery stores around. They're everywhere. The main reason was traffic. In our subdivision, the main complaint is traffic on North Territorial and Beck Road. And how are you going to get to 5 Mile and Ridge? You're going to take Beck, North Territorial, et cetera. Most people are. So it's just going to get worse. We already have the garbage trucks coming down North Territorial. So Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Okay, thank you. Alrighty then, we're going to move on to item F1, new business, the 5-mile sewer intergovernmental agreement. We have MITC attorney Steve Mann here with us tonight. The intergovernmental agreement, I'll try to summarize it, Steve, and then catch me if I missed anything, but the intergovernmental agreement recognizes a $2 million federal grant that we received from former Congresswoman Haley Stevens a few years ago. This money is dedicated to the MITC corridor for infrastructure improvement, once again signaling the intent of the federal government to enhance jobs and economic development along 5 Mile Road between Napier and Beck. The resolution in front of you is an intergovernmental agreement between Plymouth Township and Northville Township because we need to build and extend an existing sewer line from Ridge Road westward towards Napier, but I don't believe all the way to Napier. This is to accommodate a business which is slated to go in on the Plymouth Township side of the street at the southeast corner of Napier and 5 Mile. It is slated to be a warehouse, another warehousing operation. Jerry, were you looking for something?
I was looking for the resolution.
Okay, it's a contract.
Okay.
Okay.
It's in
It's
page
a contract,
125.
yeah.
Okay.
So, anyway, it's to service a warehousing operation that's going in at that corner. It will also somewhat serve businesses that are going in on the Northville side of the street. So on the Northville side of 5 Mile between Napier and Ridge, you have Northville Lumber that is going in there. That's 100,000 square foot retail with 12 acres of outdoor storage. You have another company called Verita, which installs fiber optic wiring both above and below ground. Probably I'll have at least 350 employees at that site. And there's going to be 72, I keep saying 72, but it's more than that. 79 condos that are going to be built on the Northville side, townhouses that will be built on the Northville side at Ridge and 5 Mile in the northwest corner. However, we are still going to be the primary user of the sewer, and therefore the intergovernmental agreement provides that any amount over the $2 million federal grant is to be shared in a formula between Plymouth Township and Northville Township. And we've got Jeremy here tonight too, our township engineer. I know he's been working on it as well, but Steve, if there's anything I've missed, please let me know.
Thank you, Mr. Supervisor. I would just point out that Plymouth Township is the main user of that joint line. It's 86% Plymouth Township, 14% Northville Township. The agreement also provides that the engineer's estimate for the project is $2,375,000. $2 million of that is grant funded. If bids come in over the engineer's estimate, then the contract cannot be awarded without Plymouth Township's consent. In addition, if there's been no contract award by October 1st of 2024, then the agreement will be terminated automatically unless it's extended by the parties.
So the most we'd be on the hook for is 84% of 375,000? 86%.
Yeah, 86%.
86% of 375.
Correct.
Yeah.
If the project comes in within estimates, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And we've briefed Director Fellrath, DPW Director Fellrath on this as well. And this is standard procedure for how sewer lines are built, and then eventually, once the sewer line is built, then it would be under the control of Watua, which is our regional sewer system.
So if this is 86% Plymouth Township, why is Northville Township managing the project, and why are they selecting the engineering firm?
Because Northville Township's finance director has been with Northville Township now for, I'd say, at least 5 years, and she has taken on the responsibility of managing all of the grant monies that MITC has received on behalf of, from all sources, state, county, federal, you name it. And it has just evolved into that kind of an arrangement. So,
Well, I understand that with the grant money, but I'm talking about the engineering and the construction. If we're paying 86% of the bill, I don't want Northville Township managing the project.
Well, Northville Township is managing the project on behalf of the MITC, and OHM, which is the engineering firm, is actually managing the project.
Well, Stantec did the design.
And OHM is going to be doing it as, we'll be working on that because OHM are the engineers for the MITC authority. So it's a collaboration. I mean, even we're
Steve,
working
why
on
do
it,
we
so.
have to upsize the sewer? Warehouses have very few people working in them.
That's an engineering question.
Why are we
I can't
upsizing the sewer from 12 inches to 18 inches?
Well, there's no sewer line right there right now.
But this is specifically upsizing 900 feet of existing 12-inch to 18-inch, and a force main of 1,500 feet at 4 inches for the railroad crossing at Johnson Creek. Force main is pressurized.
Yeah.
It's not gravity. So the existing sewer is a gravity sewer.
There's no sewer right now at Ridge and 5 westward.
So where is the existing sewer?
The sewer pretty much ends at Ridge and 5 right now as it goes westward. And Jeremy, I don't know if you want to jump in on that, but we need the sewer line number 1. And because we're basically going upstream and uphill, we need to have a larger and stronger than normal sewer line to accommodate basically the uphill flow.
Yeah, water will never flow uphill. That's why we have the force main.
And that's why we have an upgraded sewer system.
No, but bigger won't let it flow up more.
That existing 12-inch runs south of 5 Mile on Ridge Road, and then there's a 12-inch that runs east on 5 Mile, east of Ridge Road.
East of Ridge Road,
Yep,
okay,
there's an
towards the Home Depot.
There's an interceptor a couple hundred feet away that runs kind of northwest, southeast. That's the Watua interceptor. This is to take off from that interceptor, reconstruct that 12-inch, build additional gravity main up to the
Going
railroad,
west, going west.
up to the railroad, and then provide a force main underneath the railroad and underneath the creek to the west side. You're going to set a structure there. Any additional sewer for the Northville side or the Plymouth side are going to be serviced by private sewers from both those developments. So the sewer is not just for those two developments west of the railroad. It's also capacity for the stuff south of it.
So the pumping stations are going to be privately managed?
Yes, privately owned, privately managed. It's just the force main junction chamber, the force main underneath the railroad and underneath the creek, and then the gravity is going to be publicly owned.
Okay, any other questions from the board members? All righty then. I'll entertain a motion. I'm going to move that that the Board of Trustees adopt Plymouth Township Resolution 2023-12-99, an intergovernmental agreement between the Charter Township of Northville and the Charter Township of Plymouth for the construction of a sanitary extension along 5 Mile Road. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Clerk Borba. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Kermy?
Yes.
Trustee Stewart?
Yes.
Trustee Buckley?
Yes.
Treasurer Dorchevitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Heidi?
Yes.
Clerk Borba, yes. Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Okay, item F2 is the Assessment Services Agreement for the Township of Plymouth and Wayne County Appraisal, LLC, also known as Wayne County Assessing. We have representatives today from Wayne County Assessing. This is our renewal of another 5-year contract with WCA, and we have Mr. Aaron Powers here tonight to tell us a little bit more about the contract.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor. Yes, the contract that we have before you for consideration this evening is essentially the same language as the previous contracts that we've had. There was a little bit of a change back in 2017 when we undertook some of the personnel work from the township at that point. But outside of that, this is simply the identical contract that's existed since that time, just with new rates.
Okay, any other questions for Mr. Powers?
We're building in 5% per year you have as an inflation rider.
That's absolutely correct, yes.
Right. Why are you doing that? You're building it in. What if we shared it? In other words, take actual CPI. We share the risk.
I mean, last year's
Because right now
CPI
you're
was
guaranteeing inflation. If you say 5% a year, it's guaranteed inflation versus if we share it. Let's say this year it comes in at 3.5.
You want to do that?
You get what I mean?
I do. Last year's was 7.9.
And what was the inflation rider last year?
7.9.
No,
So the
no,
CPI was
no,
7.9.
your price,
5%.
5%.
Yeah, this year's, see what we do, just so I can explain that a little bit, Mr. Kermy, is that, Board Member Kermy, is that typically we've always associated our increases dependent upon what the cap would be for the municipality under the taxable value calculation. So as you're aware, last year's taxable value calculation was in excess of 5%, although the state limits municipalities' revenue collection to only 5%. So we would feel it'd only be natural to limit our increases upon that as well. So although we're experiencing certainly increases in employee health care costs and other benefit costs and insurance costs and others, but we've typically held all of our municipal contracts to 5%. I would love to think that we'd be under that and anytime soon, but history hasn't shown us that. But historically, we've always kept it below what's CPI.
Okay, any other questions or comments? by
Yeah,
the
do
board?
we have any, is there any metrics that we measure them by?
Doing a great job.
Doing a great job, I know, that's, is there any hard metrics to measure you by?
Sure. One of the things that I would certainly recommend is we to look at the assessment audit that occurs every 5 years. So recently, the state legislature adopted PA 660 back in 2018. It's an annual, I'm sorry, it's not an annual. It occurs every 5 years. It's an audit of assessment offices. It's not the audit of the assessor, but it's the audit of the entire assessment department within a municipality. Back in 2008, the state of Michigan adopted legislation to ensure, in fact, that the assessing function in all municipalities was being done appropriately and correctly, because they have a large stake in property taxes as well as jurisdictions do. And of course, what they do is to, every 5 years, each county in the state of Michigan is selected, and we've undergone audits successfully ever since the enactment of the auditing process back in 2008 or 2004, I think was our first one there. WCA successfully represented client jurisdictions in excess of over 80 audits now, very successfully. So our metrics are, actually last year we did 3 in Kalamazoo, with quite a few of them with perfect audits. So, and then of course, I don't believe Wayne County is anticipated on having an audit until, no, 25. So that'll be our next opportunity for an audit.
So any kind of audit that affects Plymouth Township directly, there's not one on file that I can go look at?
Yes, if you go to the state of Michigan, I believe it's under, there's a webpage where actually all of our audit results are there.
So if I come to your office, you'll show me how to get to the web?
Absolutely.
Good, all right, thank you.
Yeah, actually, I think our last audit here in Plymouth Township was perfect.
All right, that's good. But you got to share that with us. If you have good news, share it with us. And one other question. How confident are you that we're capturing the PRE designation for rentals at 0%?
I can't be 100% confident because there's just no way to be. What oftentimes is relatively confusing in regards to PRE and PRE designation is that what you're referring to is the principal residence exemption that a homeowner is entitled to when they own and occupy a property as their principal residence. And the statute looks at particular times during the year and when that ownership occurs. Oftentimes it's relative to the summer and the winter taxable, although the vast majority of jurisdictions do all their collection in the summer. However, let's say, for example, I was here as of July 1st and I owned and occupied the property, and yet the property was turned into a rental August 3rd. That PRE stays on the property for the entirety of the year until it flips over again in the following year. So there's always a little confusion as it relates to why a property may potentially still have 100% PRE, although it's being rented. And that's just simply the way in which the legislature has established that. But we do our best. The PRE really is a funding mechanism of the state education tax. We tend, and we certainly do a good job ensuring the state education tax. I want to be on record for that, but I would definitely say our emphasis is more on local than oftentimes state. So we certainly want to make sure that we do our due diligence for the state, but we're certainly going to focus on local matters as well.
We just want to make sure that the schools are getting their rightful
Absolutely.
assessment, and we're going to vote on that on February 27th to renew the 18 mills for non-homestead property, correct?
That will be on the ballot. Likewise, Mr. Powers, you introduced a scenario where someone leaves after the July, and so you don't get that increase even though they're renting it. Likewise, when someone who has a rental property and sells it to someone who's going to occupy it, they have a higher rate for that next part of the year. So you get kind of a balance in that.
Correct.
So, two questions. On the rental, addition to the rental question is, how does, if somebody's aware that a house in their neighborhood has become a rental, how do they inform you of that without ratting their neighbors out publicly?
You rat the neighbors out.
So the principal residence exemption is administered locally through the assessor's office. However, the audit function of that is done in a couple of different places. First, locally. So if we're made aware, and we've got a fantastic staff with Tracy and Tina and Haley and Miriam, and am I forgetting anyone? I'm pretty sure that's all, that is always looking out for those particular items. So we'll look, and if something comes to our attention that a PRE should be locally denied or granted, we certainly can work with that. Then the county treasurer's office does an audit. And then lastly, and oftentimes I always recommend to people, if there's questions on PREs, is to absolutely be forthright with the state treasury. It's the Michigan Department of Treasury. So when you file, whether or not it's your 1040 CR, your homestead heating credit claim, or when you file your Michigan income taxes, there's a reason it asks for your taxable value. And that's because the state Department of Treasury is going to do a cross-reference between your principal exemption and your income tax filing. And they also do an audit process. Oftentimes their audit process is sometimes lengthier to come to light, might be 2 or 3 years later, and oftentimes their penalties and interest are pretty good as well. So I oftentimes recommend everyone to be forthright as potentially possible, because the penalties and interest are not good.
So if I heard you right, there's audit done locally at the county level and at the state level?
Absolutely.
Okay. For this 346,507, how many FTEs do we get for that?
I'm sorry, how many?
How many full-time equivalents?
Head count.
Head count.
It's difficult to say full-time employees, because many of our employees actually come here on multiple occasions, such as myself. I'm not here every day, but I certainly contribute to the overall.
But when you don't you price it based on the number of FTEs it takes to do the work?
It varies.
Not necessarily. Our pricing is a little bit more complicated than just full-time employees. It's going to be dependent upon, for example, your heavy industrial base, the amount of appeals that you have here, the complexity of the evaluations that you have here in the city.
It's also the training and education that you have as well. I mean, you can have you can see 2 or 3 people in the assessor's office sometimes, but they all have different skill sets and training and degrees and education.
And Plymouth Township, as a jurisdiction, requires the services of a Michigan Master Certifying Assessor, which is a lot different than other municipalities as well.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'll just say I think you guys do a terrific job for us, for the value that we get from your staff. You guys are always there. You're attentive. They're in here on holidays as well. I catch you guys sometimes working the holidays. And it's a very dedicated team, and I'll tell you, any time we have a question involving assessing or taxation or current trends in the law, you guys are always on top of it, so appreciate it.
So I have one question, Bob, this applies to you and the finance director. Where are we, did we budget for this increase, or do we need to make an adjustment later in the year? And remember, it has to coincide with the tax collection administration fee, right? It can only go to pay for this or your office, pay for assessment.
Yeah, I don't believe we.
Well, I think we budgeted 5% because that's what we've been giving.
Because the current contract, which is a 5-year contract, that was 5% a year as well. So I think we just continued that process.
So no anticipated adjustment required.
No. Okay, any other questions from the board? Need a
Mr.
motion,
Supervisor.
Mr. Clerk?
I move that the Board of Trustees adopt Resolution 2023-12-100, approving the assessment service agreement for the Township of Plymouth and Wayne County Appraisals LLC for a 5-year term expiring December 31st, 2028, and authorizing the supervisor and clerk to sign on behalf of the township.
Okay, motion's been made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Buckley. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Trustee Kermy?
Yes.
Trustee Buckley?
Yes.
Treasurer Dorchevitz?
Yes.
Trustee Stewart?
Yes.
Supervisor Heising?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, item F3 are revisions to Township Park rules and regulations. Rules and regs for our township parks have not been updated since February of 2020. And based on feedback from both our park supervisor and Sarah Wiesel, who is responsible for our park shelter reservations and other park oversight items, we have updated, we're recommending updates to our rules on issues such as hours of operation, shelter availability and fees, and dog regulations. The policy changes are noted in red in the attached draft park rules and in the attached Excel spreadsheet concerning shelter availability and fees. If we want to discuss allowing dogs on leashes tonight, this would be a good time to do that. However, in my opinion, any changes in this area should take effect early in the new year and under a separate policy, and it will require ordinance revisions because our current ordinance does prohibit dogs in the park. I think that ordinance has been on the books probably since the beginning of time. So that's not a new thing, but it's certainly something we can take a look at. Anyway, that's it. We have Sarah here tonight. Sarah, if you could just walk us through the really relatively minor changes in red, and then we'll talk about fees, and then we can talk about dogs.
Sure, thank you. So the change for the fees, it was strictly that registration and additional fees are set by the township board. We're just changing that to supervisor with prior
Why?
notification to the township board.
So we don't have to come back to the board every time we change the fee structure? So the supervisor could do it, but he or she would have to do it with prior notification to the township board.
So
All other fees in the township are set by the township board.
well.
Why would this be an exception?
Because
Very fluid.
labor costs, rental fees, rental costs, costs of upkeep, costs of maintenance, overhead is dynamic, frankly, and it's far more flexible for us to do this with board notification rather than coming back to the board every time.
I'm confused. Give me an example. I don't understand which fees they are then.
Well, we'll talk about that. So we have an attachment with those fees on there.
But those are the fees for rental.
Yes.
Yes, the
This would apply, number 3 here applies to rental fees?
Yes.
Yeah.
They're
Really?
referred to
Well,
as registration
That's
fees.
pretty, yeah. I have a concern with the rental fees being only the supervisor's input.
Okay. Okay, so let's move on.
Okay, so the next point was hours. Based on requests from the park staff, they are asking that we have specific hours. Instead of dawn to dusk, it's actually going to be park hours of 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. April through September, and 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. October through March.
I have a comment about that, suggestion. So what were the current hours are dawn to dusk. The problem with, and I agree, it needs to close before it gets dark, but the problem with these hours is that in April and in September, 9 o'clock, it's dark, and sometimes you only have one employee in there by herself, and it's dark.
And on the flip side, at 10:15, it's still light in the summer.
Yeah, I would recommend, somehow we need to figure out how to make this align with the light, because I think it's not good. One employee being in there by themselves, locking up the bathrooms and taking the trash out, and it is dark, like now dark.
Which is why we were trying to change that.
I know.
Oh, okay.
I know, but when you
That
look
doesn't
at
fix
the
How does it not
bookends,
fix it?
in April at 9 o'clock, April it's dark.
April, it's from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. So,
April through September is 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Park hours are 9, no.
oh no, October
8 to
through
9.
March. Yeah, October through March.
So in April, at 8 o'clock, you know, it's dark, and
Well,
in
we can-
September, it's dark. It's like this dark.
At 6?
Yeah.
Wait a minute, this
I
says,
think we did do some research looking at, sunset times
April through September.
when we came up with these hours, but it can definitely be readdressed if necessary, but
well, there's on your phone, it tells you what time dusk is.
Yeah, sunset, yeah.
Well, it tells you sunset, and dusk is usually a little bit later, because it sunsets and it's still light out.
I mean, I'm totally in agreement that, you know, it should close at night. I'm not saying that. But I'm a little concerned about the safety of employees.
So what is your suggestion?
Well, hold on, before we go there, it's been a challenge for park staff to enforce
close the
dawn to dusk, and especially with dusk, because I think everybody
defines it
has a different definition. And it's a challenge, especially for park staff, to instruct people, it's time to leave, it's dusk, and they're like, no, it's not.
Right.
And so if you have a set time, that's undisputable.
Correct.
And that's kind of the problem that we're trying to remedy.
But we're not designing this around the park staff, we're designing it around the users. So we need to figure out how
Well, both.
to
I
make,
mean-
well, to make both, but right now, we seem to be favoring to make it as easy as possible for park staff. What can we do? We need to figure out a clever
Park
way.
staff has to enforce the rules, I mean, you know.
What, right, but right now, this is lopsided towards not the customer, it's the employees.
No, I disagree.
Well, at 9 o'clock in July, you still have an hour and 15 minutes of light after 9 o'clock.
Right.
And so why are you kicking people out at 9 o'clock? If you have a Little League baseball game, are they done by 9?
No, they operate on a different schedule per our contract with the
It
Little
says
Leagues.
exceptions will be made.
Yeah, no, we have a separate.
But I mean, they are in there. Okay,
Yes.
if they're in there, but though, may I go into the park too? But I'm not Little League oriented?
We would encourage you to, vacate, because we don't have a contract with you to maintain
Yeah, I understand that,
ball
but
diamonds at, 90
I'm not
grand a
smart
year.
enough to know right now without studying this. There's got to be a clever way to do this
Sarah,
different than
Would
this.
it be too complicated to have April, May, June, July, August, September? So it's more aligned around the daylight hours? Or does that get too complicated?
I think that might be too complicated, yes.
Chief, the traffic rules in the state of Michigan for having your headlights on is a half hour before and a half hour after sunset, for the reason that he's talking about, because you still have ambient light. That's still the rule? Okay.
Well, we need to work on this. I don't think right now we can come up with the clever solution that solves the employees' confusion or a problem with getting people out and then being able to utilize the park completely during daylight hours. And the confusion with the Little League, hey, I'm not in the Little League, but why are you kicking me out and they get to stay? That's what I see was gonna happen. But I don't want to approve something that's going to create another problem. Solve one, maybe, and then create another. It's
Okay.
still winter time, so we've got some.
Yeah, no, we do.
It's not something that's gonna blow up tomorrow.
The major reason why we're having this discussion tonight about the park rules has more to do with the fee schedule than anything else.
Correct.
Because we would like to increase the fees, and we would like to also restructure the rental times for the pavilions.
Correct.
We have to have all of that in place and approved by the middle of January, when we have our annual.
I start taking.
Sign up.
I
Yeah.
start taking reservations
Yeah.
January 9th, I think.
So that's really, Chuck, that's really the
Well,
driver.
we can do that for sure then today.
Yeah,
We can compartmentalize it like we're going to do, I assume, with the dog thing.
And that was, yes, and that was the main driver here tonight, so. Do you want to move on to the?
Yeah, why don't we
let's move
just
on to the
postpone
fees.
this number 5 and go to the fees?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, first of all, wait a
Great
minute, there's
idea.
the dogs, not dogs,
Well,
there's the
the
animal
Yeah,
thing.
let's move on, let's come back to that. Let's go to the fees and the pavilion rentals.
Okay, so for the fees, So first up, we are looking at, we typically have 2 sessions that we would rent the shelters. That would be 10 to 3 and 4 to 9. We are proposing going to 1 session a day, which would be noon to 7.
What's the reason?
We do not have proper staffing at the park.
We do not have enough
They are
staff.
not able to turn over. The park is, I mean, in the summer months, it is booked back to back, back to back, back to back, back to back. They do not have the staff to properly clean it, maintain it, and turn it over. 4 different shelters.
In
Then-
conflict
So-
between the people.
Yep.
What, so we're going to have, again, we're going to restrict the number of rental slots substantially. We're
Correct.
going to cut them in half.
Yes.
I don't want to do that.
We're actually increasing the times for the 1 rental that would be permitted
Moving
per
from 5
day.
hours to 7
Now,
hours.
this is done because
So you rent by the day and not the half
we'd be
day.
running by the day and not the half day. Thank you, Bob. And this is due in part because we do not have adequate staffing. We cannot retain staff. We cannot attract staff. We also have conflicts between the renters themselves and staff because it is becoming increasingly difficult for us to ask one group to leave and allow the other group to come in and clean up after the first group to allow quiet enjoyment by the second group. So this solves the problem of double cleanups by limited staff, and it also reflects the added overhead costs that we are experiencing in park maintenance.
Well, it's shocking. At $18 an hour, a high school student, or high school graduate, or a college student is unwilling to do the work?
This is not 1960.
16?
I thought it was $18 we paid last year.
No,
I saw some short-term thing.
no.
The prices have varied based on also duties. I mean, the foreman, there was a deputy foreman for a while who was doing a really good job, and we lost him. So it's,
He
these
moved
jobs.
away, he moved out of the area.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I have a concern about cutting the slots in half. Wow. We cannot, people are that rude and unruly and
Yeah, they are.
unwilling to
They-
clean
yep,
up
and
their
they don't
mess.
clean up after, no.
They don't
Yep.
clean up. Yeah.
And there's
And
no
they-
policy, like some kind of a fee if they don't clean up
We
properly?
do.
We
that
do.
can
We do.
impose?
We do have a cleanup fee, but it's always, it's very difficult to enforce. I mean, we do enforce
Because
it
we
where it's
don't have,
possible.
I mean, we had attempted in the past to have the staff be there when the renters leave and go through a checklist. Well, they don't have the staff to do that. There's just not the staff there, you know, to go through a checklist when they get there, and then to go through a checklist when they leave. If damage has been done, if tables are broken, I mean,
How do how does Livonia do it, or other communities in?
Well, they have a recreation
have a
department.
recreation department.
They have a millage, they have several millages, you know, so.
Well, we can raise the price, users pay, we don't have a millage, so users pay. Do we have
That's
to
what this
raise the
is.
price so we can give more stay with the current system of 2 slots per day versus once per day? I hate to really, just because we have bad actors, it punishes everybody. It's just like the dogs. Because somebody doesn't pick it up, we restrict everybody forever. It's, corporations do that and classroom teachers and things like that, but I just don't, I hate to cut the slots in half. Maybe we
Think you'd
should.
be okay with hiring more people and?
Yeah, we raise the rates commensurate with hiring more people, I guess. Well, we can't even get the baseline number of people to keep the place staffed.
No, we can't.
So we're not at the
Can't hire police and
baseline.
firefighters right now.
So, wow.
It's a
I
dilemma,
think
but
yeah,
that's
I mean,
what
I
we're
think
faced
you would
with.
I think you would have a lot of people that would really like this, because
Sarah, how many-
they want to have, I mean, a lot of people rent all day.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you.
They'll
what-
rent for both sessions.
If you were- if you
Because
were-
10 to 3 is kind of a,
Yeah, if you were
it's not the
guessing off
most
the top of your
popular,
head, what
you know,
proportion?
so they want to have a noon to 7 or a noon to, 8 type of slot, so they end up having to rent it all day for both sessions.
So if you were guessing off the top of your head, what proportion?
Ugh.
I mean, just guess.
If it's not a good guess, don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say probably over 50%.
Rent for the full day?
Yeah.
Well, then that means, okay, then the other 50%.
And then they're actually ending up paying 2 sessions, I mean, so, but.
And you gotta have this answer. When do reservations start being
Yeah,
taken?
I don't have a calendar, but I think it's January 9th.
9th.
If people line
Tuesday.
up at 5 o'clock in the morning out here to come in.
Yep,
Get a certain slot, a certain
yeah.
day.
at a certain
And
date.
do you think they'll like those timeframes, 12? Is that the first?
I think some will,
moment they can
yes.
arrive? They can't come and set up and?
Yeah, they
Hmm?
can.
They can just get there, they can get there
They
and
can
set
get
up,
there,
and then
yep.
it's more relaxing for them to.
It's actually more,
They're not rushed.
yeah.
They're not rushed to tear down or set up.
I just know a lot of times there's only 1 or sometimes 2 staff in there, and I understand there's, and you put the staff in a position where they've got to police kick people out, and people start getting mad,
That's what I mean. This is going to allow people to have
verbally
the day.
abusive with the staff.
You know what I mean? They're gonna have the day at the pavilion
What-
versus
Sarah?
10 to 3 and then having to rush, get out and,
In this framework, the parameters of times we rent the park, how many days where there are no people buying a slot?
in the summer,
Yeah,
it would be Monday through Thursday, that you would have openings. But pretty much I book up
all the weekends?
every Saturday, Sunday throughout the
Every
summer,
weekend's
yes.
booked.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, time is of the essence on this one.
Yeah.
busy
Well,
park.
and
We can have a 1-year trial.
Yeah, this isn't a forever vote. Yeah, so, I mean, we gotta do what we gotta do.
right, but
And
if
then
we
not,
approve the front part, then only the supervisor gets to do the selection.
oh, okay, we don't have to worry about
It'll come
that part.
back.
I'm not doing that right now.
We're not
about the
talking,
fees.
we're not talking about that. And, I mean, the same thing with the animals. I mean, I think we can have some of that discussion tonight. We're gonna have our first meeting in January as our annual goal-setting meeting. We can really take a much
it out.
deeper dive on that, so.
So I'm okay with the full day. We're gonna set aside who can change the rates. Do you want to talk about animals? Because
Well, let's talk about the fees.
The only change, the only reason that that's in red is that.
Number 13? is what you're
Park
talking-
foreman had requested that we actually put the ordinance there. So we
The park
added the actual
foreman.
ordinance number.
Well, and that's because when people want to know, or, tell me the law. And so we actually have copies of the park rules with us on site. Staff carries them around in certain situations. So that was just more of a clarification of an ordinance that has been on the books for forever.
13 will become a moot point if we decide to allow dogs in our parks.
On leashes.
Right. This says animals, though, I guess. I don't know. If you bring a ferret, is that allowed? That kind of thing.
Animals are.
I think you're busy, Chuck.
I'll bring my cat. I will bring my cat.
Yeah, that's right, a cat.
Okay,
A cobra. Bring a
so
cobra.
Sarah, let me ask you a question. If we were
Can I mention something just about that real
Absolutely.
quick? The animals, because it does need to be specific that animals are not allowed in the park. I get a lot of questions about, can I have a,
Ferret.
no.
Cheetah.
Can I have a small farm? I'm trying to think of the name, come for my kid's
Petting
birthday
farm,
party.
petting
A petting
farm.
farm. Come for my kid's birthday party
Okay.
that I'm having at the pavilion.
Okay, I know.
So we have to be specific that animals are not allowed. you know, with the
Yeah.
exception
With the
of
exception
dogs on
of the
leashes,
dog, if
if
we do
that's
it.
going to be the
Of course,
case.
when we write the
Horses.
ordinance or whatever, we can learn from, I don't know what Canton or Northville's doing,
Oh,
or
you don't want to do what Canton does.
Lansing or Livonia, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's part of benchmarking.
So,
Well, the most important thing is the fees, because January 9th is here.
It's
Because
kickoff.
Yeah.
everything just, for the next month, everything kind of freezes, right? So
Yeah.
So, yeah,
well,
so-
we could adopt a resolution, we could wing it tonight and just say, that we adopt the
schedule.
fee schedule, the new fee schedule as,
And the new time schedule.
a fee and time.
and the times are on there as well, right?
So the
Sarah?
fees so they're going up. For residents, they're going up just $25.
Okay, so hold on, Sarah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The times are on there, right? Session.
Yeah, so we have session 1, noon to 7,
And then it says down
May
below.
through September.
Can
And
you zoom in on that, Bob?
So this is the fee and time schedule.
Right.
Okay.
Session 2.
And then I see session 2.
That's 12 to 5, the Four
That's
Seasons
Four
Pavilion
Seasons
only,
only, yeah.
October through April.
Wedding ceremony, okay.
Does anybody get married there?
Yeah.
Yes.
So session 1, noon to 7. Before noon, it's first come, first serve if somebody wants to hang out and have a picnic.
Technically, yes.
Yeah.
Their group comes, and it's free.
Yeah.
Correct.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, we get
Yeah.
groups that show up,
Yeah.
running groups,
I mean, if there's not a reservation in it, I mean, we do say that the pavilions are for reservations only, but they're not going to kick you out.
yeah.
You know, I mean, if no one's reserved it.
Okay, so, I'm going to move that we adopt can you zoom out there, Bob? Sorry. I move that we adopt the proposed Plymouth Township Parks 2024 fee schedule and rental schedule as submitted
Second.
On page 150.
on page 150 of 171.
Yes, good.
Okay? I made the motion, I heard Bob second it, sorry.
It's okay.
We have a motion on the table. So Bob, so Jerry, why don't you take the roll on this item?
Clerk Vorba, yes. Supervisor Heisey?
Yes?
Treasurer Dorchevitz?
Yes.
Trustee Buckley?
Yes.
Trustee Stewart?
Yes.
Trustee Kermy?
Yes.
This motion carries.
Okay, great. So, we can have a dog discussion tonight, but no matter what we do with dogs and animals, it requires an ordinance amendment, and that requires a first reading and a second reading and publication, and we have to comply with the law on that, and we need to know what we want that law to look like. I think we've raised some issues tonight about animal, how is an animal gonna be defined? I think if we're talking about dogs, do we want, personally, I think we should have dogs on leashes. I think that's
a given.
I think that's the safe thing to do. Do we want to raise the issue either tonight or down the road about dog licenses?
Yes, they have to be licensed because we got to prove they've been vaccinated.
Well, Jerry, we also need to change our ordinance because now you can sell a 3-year license.
Yeah, because
So I think we need to change our ordinance to match that.
Yeah,
You
because
couldn't- the state of Michigan would
most-
not allow it until this fall.
Yeah, most of the rabies shots are good for 3 years, as I recall.
But you could not buy a license for 3 years.
Well,
The
we
state
can,
didn't, now
yeah.
they do.
Now you can't, yeah.
So we probably have to change that part of the licensing.
Right.
Or that part of the ordinance. But my observation for looking through other communities, they tend to not have park-specific dog stuff. One did, I forgot who it was, Canton maybe. The rest, it was in their general ordinance. For example, in Plymouth Township today, there's no penalty for not picking up your dog due as you're walking your dog. Many other places have a penalty for that. And they have it under the general dog ordinance. I have some of them here.
Right.
That we can, instead of reinventing the wheel, we could at least pick the best points of other places and input from people who are interested in dogs that want to walk their dog there.
I think once you have dog walking in the park, then you also have to have penalties for people who are not cleaning up after their animal, and that's important as well. And there's certain things that we could do proactively as well, doggy mitts and things like that. It's going to raise another issue. We also, Sarah, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but I mean, what are your thoughts about parks in general? I mean, what about like Township Park? Are there any potential hazards that might exist with kids and sprayscape? I mean, I worry about.
And I do worry about that. I do find that to be a concern at Plymouth Township Park.
Maybe keep the dogs out of the
because it
playscape.
is,
Of course.
Well, playscape, sprayscape, baseball diamonds, I mean, all sorts of things.
it is a very,
I mean, that's an issue.
busy park in the summer months.
But
So-
that's nothing new. Parks across the country are busy, and there's dogs everywhere. In fact, in
But-
some states, dogs are in bars, at the bar.
Oh, yeah.
We don't allow that, I don't think, here. But, so they're
I
very
do
much
think-
more dog-friendly than
Yeah.
Plymouth Township is.
Yeah.
Dogs at bars.
I know some of the other
Yeah,
communities,
drinking
I
bars.
can't think exactly who they
Well, if
were,
you have
but
a.
they're allowed in certain areas of the
Stella.
park.
What about
They're not necessarily allowed everywhere in the park. So, because
So I
I mean,
think
there'd be
the-
concern about people taking their dog into the splash pad
Splash pad.
to cool it off. Do you know what I mean? That stuff is going to happen. You
Yeah,
know what I mean? You think that it's not, but it will happen.
But the second you have a dog defecate in the splash pad, you gotta shut the splash pad down and do a hazmat cleanup, like a
Well,
swimming pool.
not so much that, but I know we've been tagged already by the state of Michigan for stormwater permit violations relating to the splash pad.
Why? Because it's dumping too much fresh water in?
It's dumping, allegedly, according to the state of Michigan, the water is now polluted, it's contaminated.
Because somebody swam in it?
Because it's touched
People.
kids.
Touch kids.
Oh.
I'm
What-
not
what
agreeing
about-
with.
yeah, what about the
I'm
lake
I'm
that I
just-
swim
I'm just
in?
telling you that we have, there's regulatory issues
Yeah.
involved there.
They don't have enough to
So,
keep
I
it
don't know,
busy.
man, we could go on.
Well, I think we keep it simple and we benchmark what other people are doing. It seems to be working in communities that have many more parks than we do. In some like City of Plymouth is much smaller than we are, and Livonia is much larger than we are. And that seems to be working. But we're also going to have to rely on responsible dog walkers that, hey, if you see some dog do, even if it's not yours, I'd recommend picking it up because you can see that there's a lot of pressure, especially from the park employees, to not do this. When we came here 2 years ago, I was grilled that it was a dumb idea and we didn't do it because it's going to be too much work to clean up.
Well, how do you enforce the license issue? That's
They have, well, you got the park people would say, show me your dog, the dog is gonna have a license on it. If it doesn't have one. then- A tag, yeah.
And the percentage of dogs that have license tags in Plymouth Township
Very
is probably
low.
fewer than 10%.
Probably.
People aren't buying them. I also think we need to change the price. We need to put it up to $10, and if you buy a 3-year, let's say you get you get a discount, $25. Something. It's been 5 years, $5 for probably 50 years.
Has been for a long time.
I mean, I do think we have a few parks that are very conducive to having dogs on leashes.
Like Gulfview.
Like Gulfview, Lake Point, Miller Park. I mean, you know, those parks would be very,
Well, folks, I think we've raised some good issues tonight. We have significant legal hurdles no matter what we do, and I do think we should try something. And this is not the first time we visited this issue. We noodled around with this during COVID as well.
Do we need to hear from anybody today that, since we're on the agenda
It's
item?
it's not a public
But we had a
hearing or
couple
anything
No, but
like
it's
that.
on the
but,
agenda
you
item.
know.
We usually allow people to speak.
We had a couple people, we had 3 people speak.
Well, I don't know if you're allowed.
Well,
You already did.
yeah, okay.
If you want to. Well, could you come?
Yeah, you gotta come up here now.
I just relocated to this community several.
We can't
a
hear you
couple-
when you
a
talk.
couple
You gotta
years-
speak loud and.
I just relocated to this community 2.5 years ago from Frankenmuth. Frankenmuth, we have a park system very similar to the one that you have here, which includes the Kids Kingdom and a splash pad and the ball diamonds, and the dogs were very welcome. In fact, the community did a lot to draw dog events to Frankenmuth. So having lived there for 30 years where I could walk my dog and there were no issues that we've spoken of. Now, that being said, the splash pad, which again, because I walk through there on the weekends, it is very congested and it's often very chaotic the way that it's laid out. And it is very close to the parking lot. So as to how you have these people who are wet and screaming and running around and everything. In Frankenmuth, it was enclosed with a very 3-foot fence just to keep them in that area, which I would suggest for your splash pad. I think as dog owners, it should be posted on Kids Kingdom, the playscape. This is already enclosed. Dogs should not be permitted in there. Dogs should not be permitted in the splash pads. But you have a wonderful walking trail and land that isn't being used. The pavilions are highly being used, and we want to walk on these areas. And I would tell you, people who walk their dogs are your more responsible dog owners, as opposed to people who are not walking their dogs. So, yes, we will pick up our dirt. I have witnessed it. I've witnessed it into a park that is very similar to what you have, and we don't have the issues that you are proposing.
Okay.
Excuse me, I just want to also make a suggestion.
No.
That way everybody can hear you, even who's listening somewhere else.
Don't blame me.
Okay, the shelters and the dogs might be a good idea to say that they're not allowed, because what you don't want is to have somebody having a party and all 50 people bring their dogs, because that could get pretty risky.
Food and.
So,
Unless it's a dog.
just-
Unless it's a dog event, though, right?
All right.
Well, I guess,
Yeah.
Be careful.
but nobody has dog, just a
Okay.
suggestion.
All right, well, I think we've kind of wrapped things up here on this issue for tonight. We do have other items that we have to get to address. So I thank everybody for coming on this issue, and obviously, we're going to have more discussion on this. Our next board meeting, by the way, is January 9th. That is also the night of our annual goal-setting meeting, so we can certainly bring this topic back to the table as well. Okay, thank you again. I'm going to, yes, sir.
Are you considering that we could have a very reasonable, good faith person chair a task force to give a recommendation so that the board...
I know Mr. Kirby's been working on this, and
Yes.
he and I have had a couple
we have
email exchanges as well,
I mean,
so.
this past weekend, I saw something I've never seen before in my life. Emotional support dog with a choir member in church in the sanctuary. And then out at Brighton Performing Arts Center, the orchestra was on stage, 40 members with 850 people in the audience. The choir was back there, and a choir member had her emotional support dog. So, I mean, we have to deal with the updated, but somebody's got to bring this all together in a reasonable recommendation for compromise and consent, and then they can come here so that we're not going down the road of dog feces.
All righty, okay, so we're gonna move on now to item F4. This is fiscal year 2023 budget adjustments. Finance Director Elizabeth Cutie is here tonight to walk us through those adjustments. Thank you.
Hey, Bob, there's a presentation that should be on the laptop. If you could open that up.
Is your mic on?
Is your mic on?
I'm not sure.
Is there a red light in front of you?
There's a red light on,
Then you're
yes.
just gonna have to really
Pull it
project.
toward you.
Okay. Okay.
Sarah, we're all set. So, okay.
Dog came for dogs?
So, in your
No,
board
there.
packet, starting on page 151, there's a request for board action, and it kind of summarizes the proposed amendments to the current 2023 budget. Then on pages 154 and 155, there's a detailed document of the proposed changes by account number. So you can feel free to refer to that as I go through a few of these slides.
Okay.
I'll
Sarah,
start.
can you shut that door, please?
I'll start with the general fund. Most of the items that I tweaked in the general fund were just miscellaneous adjustments to different expense accounts that I noted were, reaching the top of the budget or slightly over. So in order to be safe, I proposed we tweak a couple of these account balances. There were a few line items in the clerk's department that I noted I felt I needed to beef up a little bit. One line item in the fire department and a few line items in the jail. But the most notable items are regarding the fire department budget adjustment. We received a donation of some fitness equipment.
Sorry, are you still on this slide, or?
I'm not actually there yet.
Okay.
I'm just kind of going through a
Okay.
little bit of the details, so you can just stay right there for a
Okay.
second. So we received a donation of fitness center equipment for the fire department. So we not only recognized revenue in the amount of the value of that equipment, we also have to book a corresponding expense for that also. So that's what the adjustments are that you'll see on those detail
I'm confused by
pages.
that. I didn't know if you have asset,
Yes.
you just don't change the asset base? You have to call it revenue?
It's a donation.
No,
Yeah,
but it's not cash,
No,
it's property.
Right.
So
With a ascribed value.
doesn't that affects our budget? I guess I'm surprised.
well, it's a zero impact.
Zero.
We recognize
I
the
know.
revenue.
And then an expense.
But remember, we had
Yep.
we had this problem during ARPA or whatever, when they were calculating our revenue, that the special assessment districts were considered part of our revenue, and there was all that confusing stuff that went on. Nobody remembers that?
No, I remember it, but I think that was
And we had to.
adjusted by the state.
It had to be, I know, but because we do things differently, it had to, our accounting firm had to go to bat and try to explain how we do SADs and how it's not revenue, it's a
Exactly.
pass-through.
Yeah, but that was because the federal government
Right,
didn't know that
because-
we did things
right,
like that.
That's my
And-
point.
Yeah.
But this
This is different.
exacerbates that kind of, it's another case. I don't know, what was the value of the,
15,000 something,
I think what he's talking about
15
is
and
when
some change.
Didn't understand
495.
what townships operated during ARPA.
15,000 approximately?
Totally
Okay. Just,
Yeah.
did you consult with our auditors to be absolutely sure we have to do this?
I did
In
not
this method?
personally, no, I did not.
I would hope you, if you can, run it by them. It just seems odd. If somebody donates a piece of playground equipment, the Kiwanis Club that I'm in, if we build a play structure or something like that, for example, in that park, we built pavilions and play structure stuff. It's hard to believe it has to show up as revenue.
Okay, so we've
Anyway.
made that point now, so let's move on.
The biggest item I wanted to point out with regard to the general fund budget amendment is there's a revenue line item in there. It's the local community stabilization share pot of money that is meant to supplement or replace the personal property tax that municipalities receive because there's been declines in personal property tax revenues. It was originally budgeted for $74,000 for this year, but we discovered recently that we are in fact expecting much more than that.
So how much?
$377,000.
That's
and
a
some
big
change.
difference.
Yes.
It was transition of finance directors, had a vacancy for a long time.
Well, and I think there may have been some thought as to whether this pot of money was going to continue or not. I'm not sure since I wasn't here at that point in time, but I did verify that we are in fact going to receive $377,000.
Well, that's great news.
In February of 2024, and I'll accrue it back to 2023, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's gonna that's gonna really help the bottom line quite a bit. So, so this slide here that you see on the screen, the original deficit was going to be projected at 282,000. And then with the adjustments that I'm proposing tonight, we actually would be to the good, 103,600. So that's a pretty sizable swing.
Is there depreciation expense in that expense line? So in other words, when you talk about a $280,000 deficit, that wasn't a cash flow deficit. That wasn't going to be a fund balance that was 280,000 less at the end of the year than it started. Correct?
I'm not quite.
I'll get with you tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that tomorrow.
So what slide are we on?
Well,
A different slide?
Will you go back to page 151 and those dot items and go through, are you going to go through those? The 418,800 in revenue, where did it come from? Page 151.
That's the part of the general
Request for board
fund.
action. Those,
Where did the extra revenue come from?
those dollar amounts, you'll also find them on these detail pages that have the account numbers.
I looked and it said the same thing, revenue, so I wanted to know where it came from. Is it interest? Is it?
No, the revenue is made up, the revenue increase is made up of the local community stabilization share and the adjustment to the revenue account for donations for the fitness center equipment. So those two items total
All right, so on page
413,000.
155, it says
377.
local community stabilization, all right, and private contributions and donations. 36,500, not 15,000.
Well, that was just one thing.
Oh, we
There
had
was
more.
also another
Little
revenue
League,
line
okay, other stuff, all right.
Yep.
If you go to page 155, yeah, at the,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of an eye test, but you can see it there, all right. For example, Brown, my judgment is in the future, if you could put a parenthesis after the 418 in the summary and say what it is, kind of like executive summary style versus referring us to that.
You mean in the request for board action, that memo?
Just to, for people like me that may not see that right away, or
Okay.
just, you know,
A
good
note.
communication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
Yeah, what was the third one? The 484,000 for DDA, Downtown Development Authority.
I don't know where we at, what page?
Well, I feel like
Page
we're jumping
151.
around a little bit, so I'd like to just go through what I prepared to say and then answer some questions. That'll be a little bit easier for me
Okay.
than if we jump around, so. Okay. So, if you'd move to the next slide for me, Bob. Okay, that, I already discussed that. Move that one more slide, please. Okay. So the current budget has a projected fund balance at the end of this year to be $7,991,000. With the proposed adjustments, it's looking more like $8,377,000. So.
So that's about a 30% versus for the general fund budget?
That's just for the general fund.
Yeah, so 30%.
30%.
Is that right? You
No.
take 20 million?
3%.
Well, is that 8.3 million?
Yes.
79 to 83 is not 30%.
No. I'm talking about 8.4 million divided by 20 million, right there. Go back to the first slide, which is revenues.
So you're asking is what's fund balance as a percentage of the
Oh,
overall
okay,
budget?
expenses, okay, let's do expenses. Same thing nominally, so what's 8 divided by 20?
40. It's 40%.
It's pretty good,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we're healthy.
That's why I wanted the collection fee deleted, but anyway.
Then we would have been unhealthy.
Oh, that would have been unhealthy.
No, we would just been
All right,
leaner.
so let's move on. Liz, what else do we have?
Just a couple of adjustments to the brownfield budget.
Is that a slide?
I don't think I have.
Is that the 46,000?
Yes, I do have one or two slides on that.
There it is. Yep.
So the current projection is that the fund would end up in a deficit for the year of $800. And the proposed amended would be a deficit of $46,800. And the two items that would be changing that are just a miscellaneous adjustment to one of the professional services line items. Just looked like it needed a little bit of a tweak, just $1,000. But the bigger line item was pertaining to professional services, things that we pay to Northville Township for MITC expenses. That account is currently over budget, so I needed to put some more funds in there.
So let me just
to cover
clarify
those.
that real quick, because I know the word Northville came up again. The MITC, a couple of years ago, received a $1 million grant from the state of Michigan, again, showing their support for economic development and job creation in the 5-mile corridor, for administrative overhead. So the two townships have exhausted that fund, and that fund went to pay for engineering services, legal services, and miscellaneous consulting.
Is
So
Gary Roberts paid out of that? He is paid out of that.
yeah.
All right.
The bulk of that money went to engineering, because we paid for all the engineering for the 5-mile widening and expansion. So now what happens is, again, Northville Township handles the finances for the MITC, and then they bill themselves and they bill us, so we split the cost of the legal and administrative and engineering costs. We pay that out of our brownfield fund, which has a very healthy surplus right now. I think it's about $1.8 million in the brownfield fund. Northville Township pays it out of their general fund. So we're fortunate that we have a healthy brownfield account to cover those expenses.
Okay, can you move forward one more slide for me? So this is what the proposed fund balance would look like with these amendments. Currently, we're at a fund balance of $1.5 million, and with these adjustments, it would be.
So you take the 46 out of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just decrease very slightly.
And that's before, Kurt, the 500,000 we're going to spend on the sidewalk for the new walk. It's called.
Not for the sidewalk, for the paving.
For the spine road, for the road. So we are going to provide funding for that project, and then we're going to be reimbursed through the Brownfield Authority over the first 3 or 4 years of the project after completion.
So have we dispersed any funds? I thought when they break ground, we were supposed to give them money.
No, they.
Actually,
that's in the contract.
Yeah, they're giving us money right now, actually, so.
They haven't started on the road yet.
Yeah, it's the road versus there's groundbreaking, the contract defines groundbreaking, basically. There's overall groundbreaking, then there's road south of the existing neighborhood, and then there's road north of it. In the existing neighborhood.
Oh, so it hasn't triggered the event yet?
That I don't believe has happened yet. In fact, they're giving us money now.
And we haven't made a final determination how we're going to front the money for the East Side Drive paving.
That's gonna be more like an SAD, so we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Liz?
Not for Brownfield, no. Okay, so the DDA fund, I needed to make an account adjustment for engineering services, in the amount of about $16,000. But the big item that I wanted to point out is, we don't think, so part of, if I'm not explaining this very well, just help me out. In this budget, there was a $500,000 transfer out, I believe, to, can't remember which fund, special assessment for the Spine Road construction. And after talking with Jeremy last week, I took that out of the budget because it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen until after the construction, I think, is finished.
Right.
So it'll be next year sometime.
But this is DDA, right? Yeah.
Right. EDA and BRA are both putting money into it.
I know.
So.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next?
We gotta watch this close, because there's a lot of moving parts to that Elks Club project.
Yes.
Yep.
There are a lot of moving elks.
Okay, what else do we have? Come on.
Okay, so just with those budget amendments, if you'd flip to the next slide for me. We're looking at, whoop, back up, there you go. Fund balance projected of $1.5 million rather than $1 million.
Okay.
With the removal of that $500,000 outgoing transfer. So, and then moving on to the water and sewer fund. The biggest item I see is, I think that the sewerage disposal fees account was perhaps a little light on the budget, because it's currently over budget right now.
We have
And we have two more months of expenses.
we had that issue with truing up from
Yucca would do it.
yeah, when Yucca undercharged us a couple years ago. So that's what
Yeah.
The big changes.
that's the big change, I believe.
We've already paid them for that, or it's in installments?
We're gonna pay them in June, I thought.
Yeah,
Because I don't think we've worked out the final, I think we've appropriated, we've isolated like worst case scenario funding. I believe we did that in the budget, and then
Yeah.
but we haven't written any checks yet because we don't know what the true number is going to be.
So you have a plug
We're gonna
number
have
in
to-
the budget?
Yeah, we're gonna have to take a close look at that next year. Closer look at that.
I don't think we're gonna have a resolution until June. That's what we've been told.
So YCUA is working on it and we're negotiating with them?
We're trying to fine tune the exact number because it's a metering issue, and in some cases there were meters, and in other cases there weren't in Washtenaw County. Okay.
So, with those changes, we're looking at, if you want to flip one more slide for me. Currently, the proposed fund balance is $75,488,000. With the changes I'm proposing tonight, it would take it to $74,951,000.
Okay.
How much is that as cash, Bob?
Yeah, this includes the value of all the assets.
All sets, everything.
So this is a balance sheet number, but it isn't a cash number. Cash is, where are we at in cash? 15?
20? 15, 17, I want to say somewhere 15, 17 million.
Yeah. In the cash balance report I send out every month.
Right.
It'll have the cash number?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
It'll correspond to that fund balance?
It won't correspond to this because this is including.
Everything.
Yeah, that includes assets, but I mean,
Assets.
it's the number that was used to build up this fund balance is in your cash report.
It should be, because that's the actual, what I
Cash.
sent out, that's the actual cash we have on hand.
So I
in
would
that
look under
fund.
the water and sewer portion of that.
Yeah,
All right.
towards the bottom.
Towards the bottom.
It's in a couple different accounts, but I have it structured so water and sewer are in their own section of the report.
So that's all I have.
Good.
All righty, so we're looking for a motion on this?
Mr. Supervisor.
Okay.
I move that the Plymouth Township Board of Trustees hereby adopt Resolution 2023-12-12-102, authorizing various fiscal year 2023 budget amendment as outlined in the attached.
Motion is made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Stewart. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Buckley.
Yes.
Treasurer Dorchevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All righty, thank you very much.
Are you book closing in the last week of the month of December?
Yeah, we've got all the
Are you
bills.
going to be working then, or is it everybody off?
It's gonna be a pretty slim crew. We're doing our last check run next week.
Yeah.
So,
Next week.
So the last week of the month, who is going to be in the accounting office?
I don't think anybody is.
We, you know,
No
that's.
one?
We don't know that yet,
No.
so that's.
I'm trying to get some, at least one person.
I mean, that's kind of a trick question. I mean.
No,
let's-
it's not,
I
because
mean,
we used to not allow any vacations.
Well, we used to do a lot of things that we shouldn't have done.
Right, so I'm trying to understand,
Yeah,
not
okay.
understand, I want to make sure that somebody's there at the end of the year.
People are always working here at Township Hall,
Yeah.
so.
So
Okay, thank you,
we
Liz.
have a deadline for all the bills to be submitted, which was last Friday. And so all the stuff had to be put in so they could do the next check run next week. And so everything will be buttoned up.
Okay, button it up, we're good. We're gonna move on to item F5. This is the initial AMI pricing negotiations. Pat Felrath is here, along with Bob, and Patrick, take us away.
Good evening. So back in August of this past summer, this board authorized myself, along with the treasurer, to conduct a business case for implementing advanced metering infrastructure, AMI, in the township. During the course of that work, it's an ongoing project, and during the course of the evaluation, we reviewed the pricing proposals that we received when we did a request for proposals for water meter replacement and advanced metering infrastructure. And that was an important part of the work because a lot of that cost and pricing information would be used in the business case evaluation. During the evaluation of the pricing proposals, it was brought to our attention that the pricing of the preferred respondents to that request for proposals, there were a lot of questions in regard to the pricing. We needed to better understand the pricing, and it was brought to our attention from our consultant that the prices seemed above average and below average in certain cases. So what we have here tonight is a request for the board to allow us to work with our consultant to approach the respondents that provided these pricing proposals during the RFP to negotiate not just the pricing, but the services offered. As a result, we would have true costs for the services that we actually need and want. And then we would use that information in our business case evaluation, finalize it, bring the business case to the board, expected in February, if all goes well. And we would complete that task along with a recommendation as to next steps. So tonight we are requesting that the professional services proposal that's included in your packet from our consultant for assistance in negotiating with the top respondents for the RFP to negotiate prices and services for the purposes of finalizing the business case evaluation.
All righty, Bob, you got anything to add to that?
Only thing I'd add to that is that the question why we need the help is because, these folks are experts and they see proposals all the time, all over the country. And, I don't know if $5 is too high for this widget, if it's the right price, if it's too high, too low, and it's just not our expertise. So we'll get, certainly get this value out of it, because, we just need the expertise.
So we're going to sink an incremental $41,000, so we're going to be at 70,000 on consulting services. You guys know that I'm skeptical about this because we're targeting all of this expenditure to control the costs of 40% of the water, because 60% is fixed. So I have some concerns about it, but I don't think you can make a reasonable business case to make this work.
Time will tell.
It'll be, you cannot use soft things like, because I was not paying attention to my situational awareness in my house and didn't know that my city water operated sump pump was running and it ran up a bill of $4,000.
I partly agree with that. I don't disagree with the fact that as a homeowner, I'm responsible for the things inside my home. But the part I disagree with is that the role of government is to provide services for its people. And if we provide additional services, they're not always quantifiable. What's the value of having a fire department? You can't really quantify that. So it can't all be soft. I agree with you in that, but there's certainly, it's certainly a factor in weighing the decision. Is there enough there in terms of adding additional services to the public that justifies going forward with this project? And we'll know after we get to final pricing and we can plug those numbers into the business case model, and then at that point, if you question the data, that's fair to do that.
Yeah, you could spend, theoretically, you could take the money you spend in investing to protect these few people, you could just write off their water bill and you'd probably be way ahead, potentially. So we need to think about that. So I am skeptical.
Noted.
Okay, any other questions?
It's the first time you've been skeptical about anything.
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay,
Mr. Positive.
Anybody else on the
And
board?
there's just no other way to make these comparisons. There's no other data out there, just using, your background. It's 41,000 just to have someone give their.
Well, they're actually, it's more than that, because they are, it's different if you're in an industry and the sales side of that, how to take it apart. And I did that in technology. I could take a proposal apart because I understood it, but I don't understand, these components of water and sewer. And it's a little bit different than that because what we're going to expect these folks to do is to be able to put the pressure on the vendors, the pressure points to reduce the costs in the areas that they know they can reduce them in. Because they told us, that without revealing too much in a public forum, there's areas of these quotes that they said, that looks like it's really out of line from what we normally see.
Who said that?
The consultant in step one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's what we're counting on. And if they come back and if they can't improve our price at all, then we got another issue with the consultant.
Okay. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move for the approval of the eSource Companies LLC, eSource in parentheses, to perform professional services as specified in the attached advanced metering infrastructure, AMI, contract negotiation support proposal dated November 27th, 2023.
Motion's made by Clerk Vorba. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Treasurer Dorshevitz. Mr. Clerk, please take the roll.
Trustee Stewart.
Yes.
Treasurer Dorshevitz.
Yes.
Trustee Kermy.
Yes.
Trustee Buckley.
Yes.
Clerk Vorba, yes. Supervisor Heisey.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All righty. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Bob. Next up again is public comment, again limited to 3 minutes. Bob will set up his clock that's worked so far pretty good.
Clock.
Where's his clock? Hold on, let's find the clock.
I've lost it.
Sands of
They're
time.
beautiful.
Oh, let's see. Pick a
Marilyn
time.
Bertera again. Are you ready?
Wait a minute. You're
Okay.
cutting into your time here. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go.
Marilyn Bertera, again, supporter of the racetrack, and I would like to address two issues that the opposition to the racetrack raised. One was about Mr. Garla, I think his name was Garla, about the past history of Pinnacle Racecourse in Huron Township. Was started by Jerry Campbell, who was a banker who owned thoroughbred racehorses. He had no experience running a racetrack. He got investors to go in to start the track. He had no experience. The Carlo family has run successful racetracks in Michigan and in Ohio for over 75 years. So the Northville Downs project should not be compared to Pinnacle Racecourse. And then the other one was the doctor who testified about a public health issue of gambling. The racetrack with gambling on the phones, computers, racetrack will be a small percentage of gambling in the township. I think there's a lot better chance, especially of young people getting addicted to gambling on their phone than there would be with having a racetrack in the township.
Are you a paid lobbyist or consultant for anybody?
No.
I
So you
think
do it
that's...
as a part of your business?
Yeah, well, this is not a Q&A session, and I apply that to the speakers, and I have to apply it to the board in this case as well.
No, I'm not.
That's, you guys can talk about that later. Talk about that later. Yes, sir.
And could you
I wasn't
sign?
planning on speaking today.
Could you sign in, please?
Will
Thank you.
do. Wasn't planning to speak today, but a couple of things that I heard made me say a few things. First of all, sir, I'm responsible for the collection tax. I was an attorney for the city of Detroit. I handled the city case for the city of
You
Detroit.
talking about the 1% collection fee?
We added 1.5% for the city of Detroit. I won the
You
case.
guys were 1.5%? You guys were rich in Detroit.
Well, we weren't rich, but it helped. So I won, me and my boss at the time, we won the case in the Supreme Court of the state of Michigan. So if you want to blame anybody, blame me. On the racetrack, all these people that have lived here 20, 25 years, I lived here over 20 years. When they moved out here 20 years ago, that was the Hoko property. So please don't tell me that the Hoko was better. I have no position whether the racetrack is good or bad for the township. I don't. But let's use realistic arguments. It was the Hoko, it was a state prison, and there was the abandoned prison. They were in Northville Township, but they were all there. It was still a beautiful township. I don't see how the racetrack could be any worse than what that was. And anybody that says it was beautiful back then, come on, prisons are prisons. I also fought the Plymouth Township on behalf of the city of Detroit because you guys tried to tax the Hoko at the time, but that's a different story. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, very good. We're going to move on then to board comments. Let's start with Trustee Stewart. Are you all set, Jim? You're good? Okay.
Merry Christmas. Thank you for the privilege of serving as trustee. I look forward to 2024 and the board working together. I apologize for a personal example. The uncle that I favored the most.
Is your microphone on? He's motioning to you.
Merry Christmas. Thank you for allowing me to serve as your trustee. I look 2024 where we can all work together. I am proud to say that my uncle was James Vanderven, who was superintendent of schools of the Mason Public Schools. And he had his school board over for 22 consecutive years for dinner at his house. And they got along somehow as a superintendent of a gem of a little school district like Northville. So maybe we can look forward to some positive working together in the best interest of the people of Plymouth Township. See you January 9.
Okay. Trustee Buckley?
Yeah, just echoing those same sentiments. Merry Christmas to everybody. I can report, I guess, on our Veterans Commission meeting that we had last month. We won't have one this month, so hopefully that's getting out and is noted just for Christmas break. But we had a great meeting. We had one person missing, but we went and formed a few committees. One for support of the veterans, and then we kind of defined what that meant, and then awareness, a Veterans Awareness Committee, and we define what that is, and just how we can improve upon some of the activities and events that we're already doing for Plymouth Township, and then ways that we can add more things into that. But overall, it was a very good working session. We have wonderful veterans on the commission, and speaking of veterans, I'm happy to report my son will be home for Christmas.
Great.
This Saturday, and I get to enjoy his company. It's been over 14 months since I've seen him, and we didn't think he'd be able to come home, but he can, so.
That's great.
Give him a big
Wonderful.
shout out.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bob, thanks. Bob.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah. My ancestors were run out of Europe, so I have nothing to say there. Thanks, everybody. It was a fun year. Dale, you made it fun.
Okay, Jerry Vorba, let's give us an election update.
Okay, first of all, Happy
election
New Year
update.
and Merry Christmas, and Happy Hanukkah also. We sent out a letter informing everybody about the location of the new voting center and the drop box. That letter went out and was arrived over the weekend. Monday, we mailed out our absentee ballot request forms. I would ask that everybody fill those out. Please put your telephone number and email. We don't pass that stuff out, but we needed to get a hold of you. And the drop box will be open for business this weekend. We have security lights and 24-hour security cameras on the drop box out at the church on McClumpha and Ann Arbor Road. And just stay tuned. You'll be getting more information on the voting process as we go through the next couple of weeks. And please, just everybody have a safe holiday season.
Okay.
Jerry, the Dropbox is also for the application?
Yes, it is. It's for the ballots and applications, just like the one out front here is. So you can put your applications in there, you can drop them off here, you can mail them back to us, the postage is paid on them. That was part of the new state law. The same thing with the ballots, the postage will be paid.
Why was the letter not on letterhead from the township?
Just saving money. I would have had to print up 24,000 sheets of paper, and so I was just trying to save money.
All right.
Okay. All set, Jerry?
Yes.
Okay, Chuck?
BSNA building department module. I want us to make that so that people can enter data remotely. I hear that our IT department doesn't believe in it, but many other places are doing it. With the skeleton crew we have, with all the quits in the building department, it could be a great opportunity to trial it. BSNA, if you just draw a dotted line around the building department and try it, many other communities are doing it, other companies are doing it, working off-site.
Yeah.
So our consultants could put in the information, and for example, Spalding to Decker, I really think we got to move into the next century on remote working. People are working in India remotely on projects. So I don't understand how building information would be so risky to try and allow people to remotely enter.
The problem is that with BSNA, we're on-prem. So if you let somebody in, you've let them into potentially everything. And we just don't have a really, big IT staff. So once we go to cloud, which we're gonna have to go eventually in BSNA, then at that time, it would make sense
So these
to,
other communities are using cloud with BSNA, not us?
I can't speak for other communities.
Getting there. I
Some
know-
are using it,
I
but.
think
Go to their
Nor-
website,
I
it
think
makes it look
Northville-
like
I think
it
Northville
is the
is.
cloud.
Northville
They're
is using BSNA cloud. They,
We just
but-
learned that today.
Yeah, the cloud version is not as robust. It still has some features lacking, and there's a long lead time to migration to the cloud, but at some point, the answer to that is yes. But right now, with it being on-prem, you're basically letting somebody in, and once you open that up to the outside, you're creating
So
some
these other
risk.
communities are just taking the risk.
I can't speak for what they're doing. I don't
Jeremy,
know
are
what
you
their
entering
architecture is
information
like.
on BSNA for other clients? Off-site, in other words, in your office,
Not to BSNA, no.
but to similar kind of software?
So we have some remote in to some cities' networks, yes.
But you remotely connect into a remote desktop? Do you take control of the desktop?
Yes.
Yeah, that we can do.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm looking for, something creative so that if we're having a hard time retaining employees in the building department, which is that is, in my opinion, the most critical department, because that's where your tax revenue gets generated by building and modifying. And we don't want to delay projects. If you want economic development, the building department is critical.
Okay.
So we need to get a new paradigm somehow about working remotely and quickly, at least for that department,
If you're in international relations, I understand that. But we have a General Motors, Mary Barra, CEO, who has ordered, directed GM employees back in the office Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, starting in January. They may not skip, or they can skip Monday, maybe and Friday, but they have no option. They must report in person to their offices Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I've wanted to say this a long time. There is great therapeutic value in in-person appearance when a prosecutor such as Kevin Bennett and a defense attorney and a defendant have to appear in person in front of a judge, which our 35th District Court judges are taking the time to greet each individual defendant as your spouse has to do. Because oftentimes it's great therapy and people get religion.
I agree completely. In-person work, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about our consultants who work in their own offices.
Okay.
Like Spalding to Decker.
Different, yes.
And our our planners, so they can efficiently update projects that are in the building department from their office.
I agree with you.
So that we don't have to enter it here with our employees,
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I think we're talking a little bit about BSNA and PZE and some other,
Yes,
and the
well,
other programs.
yeah,
So
exactly.
PZE is something that, there are some communities that have dedicated people, that's all they do is PZE, so. And that's planning, zoning, and what was the E stand for?
Enforcement?
I don't know.
Probably
So
enforcement.
but it's an offshoot of BSNA software. All right,
Anyway.
are we all set?
Okay, so Merry Christmas, everybody.
Okay, so our next meeting is January 9th. We have the annual goal-setting meeting. I will tee it up as I always do. I'll give you a list of things that have been in my mind for the past year. And you can discard all of them, or you can come up with your own. I want you to come up with some of your own ideas, too. We're going to have the Planning Commission at their last meeting adopted a text, what's known as a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, and that allows for, it gives us the greater flexibility to subdivide unusually looking parcels, basically.
Older ones.
Especially some of our older parcels that are, still have vestiges in the agricultural world. When we do lot splits, the current ordinance does not give us the flexibility that we need to accommodate the request. So that would be basically a second reading at that point. So the first reading, because it's a text amendment, has already been done by the Planning Commission. So we would have essentially a second reading on that. It's still a ways off, but I think we'll more than likely have a closed session on Myers, possibly a closed session. We may do a doubleheader, closed session regarding the police contracts as well. And then on January 23rd, we consider the adoption of the joint recreation plan with the city. A lot of uncertainty right now on how that's going to look. The city did kind of go their own way on their recreation plan to really promote the millage, the recreation millage that eventually failed. Now, I was told, we heard today that they may actually, the city may actually put that millage on the ballot again in February. So, but we'll see what happens with that. That's not our job. And then we also have January 23rd, the SPARS rezoning request.
They're coming back.
So they are coming back. They've been denied twice by the Planning Commission. We gave them basically a free shot here one night to hear their concerns and hear the public's concerns. So they are coming back, as they are entitled to, for their final appearance before the board.
They could come back with something completely different than what they showed the
They're
planning commission?
they're gonna come back with what they gave to the planning commission at the last
was
meeting,
completely different.
which was, you know,
Yeah.
it was different, but what would you say completely different? I don't know. I mean, completely
Substantially, significantly.
Completely different would be 16 standalone homes, but this is kind of
Okay, significantly
okay,
different.
a little bit more different.
Materially
different. So anyway, that's January 23rd. February 6th, I know that's a long ways off, but that's our annual golf course update. We'll have the golf course operators here. It looks like we're gonna have another profitable year at the golf course, and it really looks terrific. It's looking as good as I've ever seen it. So, again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, and we will, and Happy New Year, and we'll look forward to seeing you all when we reconvene on January 9th of 2024. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Stewart, seconded by Mr. Vorva. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.